I don't know if I've ever done anything really pathetic for attention outside of having a temper tantrum and complaining because everyone keeps thinking I'm an AI voice when I'm really not, but anyway, yeah, let's just get to it. What's the most pathetic thing someone did for attention? Story 1. There was this girl in my high school freshman year who was in general classes with me. I was meant to be an academics class for the kids who learned at a faster rate. I became friends with her because I felt like she needed a friend. Around my sophomore year, I moved to a smarter class, and she was always making me feel bad for leaving my old friend group for a new friend group. There were times where she would text me that she was gonna unalive herself, and I was like, don't do that stuff. She did this often, and I was very concerned. I told my counselor at school. Around the end of junior year, she texted me saying she fell and hit her head. Now she's in the hospital. Then apparently her brother texted through her phone saying she's in critical condition. Then her mom texted on her phone saying, she's expired, she's flatlined. I was just texting all sarcastic like, oh no, not unalive, she can't be. Ended up blocking her and never talked to her again. She was missing days of school to make it seem like she was legit gone. She was alive, she was just seeking attention. As of December 2022, she's still alive. There was this kid in my high school who was mentally ill. Like we knew something was wrong. He tried to hurt himself with a pencil in front of me because I told him I didn't want to hang out with him anymore. He really liked this girl in my homeroom who had really big breasts. Seemed fake, but she told us she had something that made them abnormally big, like anime girl breasts. She was a cool girl and also liked anime. This guy only liked her because her breasts were huge. He asked her out. She denied him. What was his response? Jump off the stairs and cry. He broke his arm and made the whole situation about him. I was quite surprised and embarrassed that he did all that. I'm trying to think back of when I was that young. Feelings are just starting to become a new thing for us. We're experiencing things we've probably never experienced before. Because of that, they become more intense. A rejection feels like the most heart-wrenching thing ever, just because we've never experienced it before. It's even worse when we have these feelings and we can't talk them out with someone else, especially someone who's more of a social outcast. And then that just perpetuates those feelings and a vicious cycle emerges. Story 2. I think it was my junior year of high school in the mid-2010s. Spanish class. There was this one kid, let's call him Kevin, a freshman in my class. At my school, freshmen and juniors and sophomores and seniors would often have the same classes together, who came in a bad mood and proceeded to sit in front of the projector while the teacher was teaching. The teacher sent him to the office or guidance counselor, and when Kevin came back, our teacher sat him down next to me, and I had to babysit him for the rest of the class, walking him through the assignments that day. I would feel bad for him, except the rest of the year, he proved himself to be the most annoying, distracting little jerk I've ever met. And for some ungodly reason, I was always sat in the same group of desks with him. He admitted to me about playing gambling games with real money on his phone during class, with the volume up. The teacher would come up to him and tell him to stop. Kevin would deny having his phone out, and I'd say, "Yes, you did. Stop lying to her face." "Yes, I said that." Sometime later, Kevin and two other classmates, who I also wasn't too fond of, came to talk to me during lunch, trying to be friendly, and the interaction ended when he decided to shove his butt into my face, asking if there was a stain on his pants. I think he thought this was funny because he was an immature freshman, but I was so ticked off that when I saw him casually talking to the dean later, I stormed up and told him what he had done. I managed to pretend to be calm and cool when we were in the office, so much so the dean praised me for being so mature, but Kevin got into some serious trouble. Never spoke to me again, and I'm very grateful for that. Some people just aren't ready to take the next step in their social evolution. It also reminds me of the saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over, accepting a different result. I guess Kevin just felt like he didn't find the right immature joke yet. Maybe that's why this person was always sat with Kevin. They were hoping some of their maturity would rub off on Kevin. Apparently, no. Story 3. Backstory. I was a camp counselor at a local rec for the summer, and there was this one girl who was the typical attention hog, dyed hair type. She was a co-camp counselor who was 2 years younger than me. She made up stories about how her uncle was in the mafia and other stuff. My other fellow counselors got up to the point where we questioned all of her stories. She even pretended to be gay for a while. This girl, let's call her Tegan, kept fainting every time me and her were alone in the break room. I don't know if she liked me or what, but it happened many times. I could see her eyes fluttering and everything, but for the first few times she did this, I believed it. Then I realized it was fake after I said I'll grab the head counselor, and she miraculously woke up. She told us she had all these injuries on her legs but could walk or run faster than anybody else despite this. I was obviously ticked because I actually have something wrong with my legs, but she would brush over me and try to one-up my real injuries. She said she even got forced into intercourse at school by some guy, but most of us didn't believe her because someone from her school came to the rec's pool and told us that she made it up after the guy rejected her and got in huge trouble. Many other stories I could tell, but I tried to keep my distance once I saw through the smoke. She tried to get me in trouble after I avoided her by spreading many rumors. So many stories I could tell. Last one, though, she kept saying how she was self-unaliving, but would mention it every time she could. And as someone who has tried to commit self-unaliving, I was not only ticked, but also could obviously see how she was trying to gain sympathy because of the way she acted about it. There's a literary concept called the Mary Sue. It usually describes not very good writing. It's typically a character who is kind of basically just like the author, who tries to insert themselves into the story, and they are just perfect with no flaws. Any story they tell is charismatic. Every person falls in love with them. It sounds like this person was trying to be a real-life Mary Sue. Did anyone actually believe her when she tried to spread rumors about the person? Story 4. Had a diva at work at a past job 4 years ago intentionally bump into me multiple times to get my attention. Objectively, she was the prettiest girl out of the 100 or so women that worked at the distribution center. All of the men from young to middle age, from lowest positions to middle management, lost their minds over her. I was mad at her since I was the one sent the most often to pick up her slack. I was practically doing her work for her. She showed everyone a condescending attitude. All of the ground floor management gave her complete free rein. You had to see it to believe me. It was hard to hide my slightly annoyed frown every time she was nearby. On the first day ever seeing her, I already noticed her massive ego, seeing her interactions with other people, along with her body language and her getting her way. It was a bit odd when she seemed shocked I nonchalantly turned forward to the security checkout for the facility. I only looked back if anyone I knew was exiting as well. We were the only ones there besides security. They told me to give them a minute. Next couple seconds, she bumped into me as if she didn't see me. I was a bit more annoyed at her since I for sure made eye contact, but I calmly brushed it off. She apologized. She did that a couple of more times over the span of 2 weeks at the security checkout. I got moved into twilight shift and didn't see her at all after that. I only worked that job a couple of months more when I switched to another different job. Story 5. This one's easy. And like most people, I've seen a goodly share of childish behavior in the wild. We went to a meetup of fans of a small niche band at a public park. This girl, and I mean 20-something, Kim, was there with her fiancé. Seemed nice enough, but kept name-dropping that she knew the band. She did, in fact, but she was way too pleased about it. You could tell it was really part of her identity, at the moment at least. So when we had a trivia game and she got one wrong, she lost it, howled, rolled on the ground, wailed, "Doesn't anyone care?" until her fiancé managed to calm her down. There's a definite tension among the previously friendly group now. Things settle down. We even are relaxed enough to eat and joke around. And Kim's fiance, an Apple girl herself, laughs at something and decides to roll backward on the grass, right over Kim's leg. I wonder how much it could hurt, since the fiance also seemed quite soft, but Kim launched once more into hysterics, howling, rolling, and clutching her legs, screaming, "Doesn't anyone care?" Because, like last time, we're all sitting and looking at each other in confusion. The fiancé is now back on the job, apologizing and the like, but I want to take her aside and ask her if she's really sure she wants to tie herself to this human disaster. The gathering kinda just ended after that, as one lady who had brought her daughter said, "Oh dear, look at the time, got to get going," and the rest of us basically, almost as one, leapt to our feet saying much the same. Kim tried to get us to do it again a while later. Yeah, no thanks. Story 6. My ex did an insane amount of things for attention. Biggest one was lying and saying she had been SA'd by my other ex, who had actually SA'd me for months. She did it for attention, and specifically to steal attention away from me about the situation. She faked flashbacks both around people and in bed with me while we'd be cuddling at night, often while I was suppressing my own real ones to deal with her flashbacks, or even just when I was trying to rant about my other ex and the stuff he put me through, not just the SA he did to me. She admitted to me that she lied about this for attention a few days prior to moving in with me. Turns out she has histrionic personality disorder, which is characterized by intense attention-seeking behavior that can sometimes be genuinely dangerous, like actually really bad stuff for the sake of attention. Still doesn't justify this, and I broke up with her after she told me because there's no way I could ever trust her again. What made her confess? Did she feel guilty? Did she sense this person wasn't buying her stories and felt like she was going to lose her? That kind of behavior does sound dangerous. Story 7. One of my classmates is really older than the rest of the students. We're on the first high school year, mostly 15 or 16, while he's already 18. And he always tries to find an opportunity to talk about how his parents abandoned him, how his grandmother is sick, how he's depressed, poor, etc. In the beginning of the school year, everyone felt pity for him because of the things he says. But he kept talking about how his life is a tragedy every time he could just for attention, and it started getting weird. One time I was taking an extra class that my school provides us every Friday for those who need help to study for tests, and I was alone with him in the classroom waiting for the chemistry teacher to arrive. He started to talk with me, saying that he needs to find a job because his family needed money. Why does he need to tell me that? I'm not even his friend. Story 8. I actually used to be an attention seeker myself. I have a lot of bad stories, but I'll speak of my worst. One time, I was in a Discord server, and everyone was ignoring me, and no one would ever acknowledge what I would say. So I pretended to expire via a tornado. Got my brother to talk on my phone and everything. They caught my bus immediately. They hated me anyway. I've had many bad relationships because I didn't understand my intentions. People isolated me in elementary school because I have autism and I was bossy and wanted attention. I was obsessed with the idea of having a friend and having sleepovers. All my sleepovers were a disaster, and I forced kids to be my friends because I didn't know how to make them. I've done bad stuff. All sorts of bad stuff has happened to me, too. I've changed very much since these stories occurred. I'm very careful to respect people.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 9. I know a person I've known all my life attempt self-deletion a few days before Christmas 2022 because she was trying to get back at her dad because he removed her child from the home because she was being verbally abusive to her. She then came to my house a few days later and essentially bragged about it, going into great detail about the whole thing, then get offended because I asked her not to. Many years ago, I tried it myself and haven't really spoken about it to many people, as it's not exactly something I'm proud of. This woman, though, thought it was. Never felt so offended, and I don't offend easy. I'm not one for doubting something like that, but this was so clearly done for attention. She tried to turn on the waterworks and putting on a fake crying voice. Amber Turd can act better than this woman. What kind of emotional turmoil is going on in a person's head where they feel faking their own deletion is a good thing to do? We all make jokes about it in movies and TV. Faking your own ultimate fate. Going to the funeral in disguise to see who was there for you. It's very hard to see that need for attention get twisted into something so dark. Story 10. Knew a guy online, part of like a 1,000-plus person community from a game that was tied to a Discord server. Went offline for a week. Someone came on his account pretending to be his brother and said they expired in a car crash. Everyone cried and got super sad for a while. Hell, some had bad depression over it. All his social medias suddenly un-add everyone. Some of us call it hogwash and said he's probs lying. Resulted in massive friend group arguments and falling outs. Friend of mine looks into it, finds out there were no car crashes reported that day, nothing in any obituaries or on the news of any expirations at all. Searched up his name, found a random account that had half of his name, was him interacting with other people. Guy came back and admitted he lied. Everyone forgives him, except a small few. Crazy. Story 11. I've had a friend who was a massive attention needer. She lied about everything in her life. Most prevalent lie was that she was a substance addict. Truth was, she had never touched substances. She faked panic attacks multiple times. Faked a miscarriage. She took the opportunity to pretend that a period was a miscarriage. Faked a seizure and tons of things like that. But the worst thing she did was that she used my brother's expiration to garner sympathy. She pretended that they were really close friends and involved herself with my grieving, but only when other people were around. She never even acknowledged me when we were alone. The truth was that my brother couldn't even remember her name. She was just that Southern girl. Last thing I heard about her was that she had supposedly cancer. I take that with a huge pinch of salt. Story 12. I remember there was this girl in my school, and she was in this relationship with this guy for barely a week. She didn't even know him properly, and she started crying and self-diagnosing herself as depressed and saying she hides scars with her jacket, and I've seen that there are no scars under it. She just shows off her depression, and she's honestly disgusting. She keeps saying that she also has anxiety and panic attacks, and every time someone talks to her, she says, "Oh, I'm gonna have a panic attack." She pretty much infuriates me so damn much. I mean, she's always like, "You're on my side, right? My ex was a shrew." And to be honest, I'm with her ex. She broke up with him, and yet he's perfectly fine, because it was only a week-old relationship. Story 13. I had a story kinda like this. There was a rumor that went around my middle school, 5th grade when I attended, about a girl in one of the upstairs classes who faked epilepsy for attention. One time, a boy sneezed next to her and she pretended to have a seizure. It was just really infuriating to me since I have some friends with major disabilities, paralysis, schizophrenia, tics, etc., and I knew they wouldn't like it. I have another story where my first ex faked major eye disabilities, dyslexia, colorblindness, etc., all because she got accidentally stabbed in the eye in the 1st grade. My ex is now a major dream/George, not found Stan. It's really irritating to see someone so caught up in their own lies they can't see the truth. Story 14. I remember in my early days of high school that there was this kid who always lied. Won't say his name, but it started with a Y. Let's call him that. The worst thing about this is that he could not keep his lies consistent. In PE class, we butted heads, and he threatened to get his high-class lawyer mother to ruin my life. In music class, Y bragged about how his mother was apparently a renowned pianist. He was the worst in that class. So on and so forth. Y kept talking out his butt to make himself look better. Not even half a year, and he had to transfer. Aside from one time in my senior years where he was walking about the neighborhood with his gang like some Filipino Draco Malfoy, minus the posh uniforms. I haven't seen him since. Story 15. I don't have this site, but one of my friends unalived in February, and one of my former friends, my friends and I call her Kooky. What did she do? She blackmailed me and invalidated my feelings for as long as I've known her, saying stuff like, she's been through worse. After I got annoyed after a classroom full of loud, conventionally stupid 8th graders, some of which are her friends, and got super ticked at me for telling no one in particular to take off, she was blatantly biased towards her friends, defending them on the basis that they're grieving, as if I wasn't either. Now, I'm definitely not a saint myself, but damn, she was god-awful. And I didn't notice till I told my friends about her actions. Might be a bit choppy. I'm extremely tired. Story 16. I had a male teammate who had a crush on another female teammate who had a crush on me, male. Turns out, he was lying about me to some of my competitors in other parts of the country, saying I'm gay and autistic. Not that it's a bad thing, but his intentions were to make the girl get off me. He then told the girl how they were talking about me being this and that, and first thing she did is come to me and tell me. I was into her too, but we couldn't hang out because our coach wouldn't let us. She has an old Soviet mentality, and because I was top 3 in the country and she was first place by far, she feared we'll ruin it if we were to break up. Story 17. I remember this girl in high school who was constantly attention-seeking to be popular or something. She was considered special needs, but she always tried to blend into the different friends groups. For the goths, she wore this black PVC trench coat with plastic princess jewelry you'd find in these cheap princess toy sets. For the chavs, this was in the UK, she wore a hoodie with black tracksuit bottoms and trainers. I even had to stop her from running into traffic because she was feeling depressed and said she'll stop running onto the road if she could slit her wrists with a ruler. I distanced myself from her and everyone else in her friendship groups because they had so much drama with each other, and I didn't want to get involved. Story 18. Oh dear Lord, I had an ex-friend who was named Carrie and acted just like the Carrie in that story. She would make stuff up and be totally rude or downright malicious to people she claimed were her friends. But if you called her out or even just stated, "Hey, that made me feel bad," she would go off and start crying and whining about how mean everyone is, and we all just need to let it go. She somehow managed to manipulate people into feeling so sorry for her that we would all feel obligated to walk on eggshells rather than deal with the fallout of her lies and attention-seeking. Glad I ghosted her, finally. Story 19. One of my classmates came up with some of the most ridiculous lies I have ever heard in my life. The most ridiculous one of them all was that she was a vampire princess and there was an evil vampire prince who was absolutely in love with her and constantly tried to kidnap her and force her to marry him, but her vampire boyfriend fought against him every night. Tell me that doesn't sound like some cheesy book or overused TV concept idea. Story 20. I can say, with experience, never, and I mean never, fake a panic attack. It always felt like my chest was being ripped apart by my heart, making it a lot worse than I thought. And the crying made my heart race even faster and made me hurt more. Thankfully, I've started to calm down and don't have them as often as I used to. But the fact someone decided to fake a panic attack that can actually hurt people disgusts me. Story 21. Personally, regarding the teacher reading the slur, I think it was meant to give the impact more than simply reading it. I remember in class we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and similar lines were in there, and hearing it read out loud, knowing the context of the story made me go, damn, because of the sort of people who would use those slurs were real, and actually thought other people were lesser than them. At least that's my opinion when I was learning about the same subject. Story 22. I had a friend who during video calls would blurt out, "Oh, half-done moans whenever someone hadn't paid her attention for more than 15 minutes. This went on for years until everyone had unspokenly agreed to ignore her whenever she'd do it. I think she caught on to us intentionally ignoring her whenever she did it, because one day she left without a word and we never saw her again. Story 23. When the girl I fell for in high school, who lived in a rich neighborhood and literally had everything given to her, would cut herself with stuff off of the ground, usually broken glass shards, sharp rocks, when we were hanging out. Literally the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.